Hey, Jeff Johnston here, host of the Living Undeterred podcast. Once again, I have a stellar guest. I'm super excited. I've met Jordan a few times, talked to him a little bit, been watching what he's been doing, and I thought I got to get this guy on the show. Jordan Montgomery, welcome to the Living Undeterred podcast. I no doubt you and I are going to go down a lot of different holes today, so this will be a fun show.
Well, thanks for having me, Jeff. I'm a fan of your work and what you stand for and the things that you're doing in this world. And so it's just an honor to share a conversation with you.
Yeah, I'm back at you, Jordan. I mean, you exude such positivity and such a great reframing ability. I've been following your story as well, and you seem to be helping a lot of people. Let me throw out the first kind of question or observation, but in the space that you work in every day, do you consider yourself more of a life coach or a motivational speaker type individual? Where do you think you would, which side of the fence do you think you lay on?
Yeah, I would say this, man. I think I'm a strategic partner and friend to
Okay.
folks. And I think I'm a strategic partner who speaks. And so, most of our work is centered on leadership development and organizational health. And so if people are trying to expand their influence or move the needle, grow results in their personal or professional life, usually they're a good fit to work with us. So that's a pretty broad definition. But we get involved in so many different types of work with different types of people that at the end of the day, it's about adding value. It's about supporting, connecting, and advocating for the people that we get to represent and work with. So good question, but I would answer it as I would probably define myself more than anything as a strategic partner and coach who also speaks.
Yeah, that's a good answer. So do you have actual clients then that you work with individually, or do you work in more group environments? I mean, do you have individual relationships, or is it more group based?
Yes, I wear a few different hats. So there's 18 people on the Montgomery Companies team, and they all do coaching and speaking work. And so part of my job is to grow our team and develop the team and make sure they're getting what they need. Then a big part of our work is coaching, both individual coaching and group coaching. So I think we have I've got 22 individual clients that I work with, and that's usually it's deeper work, it's broader scale. Again, I sort of just consider myself to be a strategic partner to those 22 individuals, and then there's a number of organizations and companies that I work with in the world of sports and business, where it's more of a group coaching scenario. And then the final part of my work is keynote speaking, and so I'll speak maybe just under 100 times this year between virtual work and in-person work. But yeah, that's kind of the makeup of the roles and responsibilities.
How'd you get here, man?
Oh man, it's probably it's there's a lot of twists and turns. But I really do believe this. Somebody said this to me the other day, man. I thought, wow, that just really resonates. They said when it's dark and you're going through something difficult, sometimes you feel like you've been buried, but you've actually been planted.
Absolutely.
And the reality is I just went through some twists and turns and lived through some dark moments in life that ultimately allowed me to do the work that I do today. So the short story is this. I was 27 years old. I was leading in a financial services firm. So we have that in common, just that background.
Right.
Love that work, honorable work, great industry, met so many wonderful people. And bits and pieces, I think, of my story, Jeff, but 27 years old and things are going well. So I've got, a decent amount of influence for a young man. I mean, or so I thought. I'm leading a team of about 50 people, starting to speak around the country as a result of some of the work that we've done in that space. And I was sort of in this proverbial penthouse, like making really good money for a young guy. Thought I had, influence, and I had decent access to different events and people. And so I had this issue though. I was overexposed and I was underdeveloped. In other words, my character wasn't keeping pace with my responsibility or influence.
Right.
And I say that because I was just running really, really hard and really, really fast in the direction of achievement, accomplishment, reward, status.
Yep.
Like that just kind of became an idol in my life. I was just living for it, and I was willing.
Became an addiction in a way, right?
Addicting. Yeah, totally. It was addicting.
Yeah.
And so I just became addicted to 12 to 14 hours a day, whatever it took to get to the next level. And I didn't, the crazy part is I don't even know what I was chasing. Like I had,
Isn't that funny?
yeah, it's crazy.
Yep.
Right? And addiction will do that.
Yeah.
So 27 years old, I get a call from my managing partner, says, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And I was so naive, Jeff, that I was actually annoyed at the request. I was like, "Man, I got clients to see today. I got things to do." And he said, "This is one of those meetings where you clear the calendar." And I thought, "Oh man, like somebody on my team must have really messed up. Couldn't be me."
Mm-hmm.
Walked into his office. He said, "Hey, Jordan, love you, care about you. You haven't been intentional, but you've been casual. And when you're casual, you create casualties. And today you're the casualty. It's the last day with our firm." And just like that, everything changed.
I like
A
that. Yeah.
team member of mine took a test. It was a CE, continuing ed, internal CE. I didn't report it, and he found out about it. But he said, more importantly, your pace is just not healthy.
Right.
And he didn't say it that way, but what he was saying is you're underdeveloped and overexposed. You're going too far, too hard, too fast.
Mm-hmm.
I lose my job. With that, I lost a lot of money. I was involved in some real estate deals that went sideways as a result of my job status. So I go literally from the penthouse to the outhouse. Company
Yep.
sends out a company-wide email to all the other managing partners, very public. I get about 3,000 messages in 24 hours. I don't respond to any of them. Go through a really intense period of anxiety. And in that process, God revealed some things and taught me some things. I think he does his best work in the desert. I was in the desert for sure. Met my now wife in that desert. She had 2 kids from a previous marriage, Audrey and Claire. So I got to become a husband at the same time I became a dad, which is a really cool story.
Yep.
And I was actually recontracted by that same company, different territory. But in that recontracting process and in that new season of life, I looked at my wife and I said, "I think we could start a coaching business." And I still want to do the financial planning thing, but I feel like I could do some coaching and speaking and developing. And man, one thing led to another. God opened doors. Here we are, 6 years later, with a few thousand clients, and it's our full time passion and work. So that's a short story long, but that's sort of how we got here.
Now you spend a lot of time in the athletic space. Being a past athlete, where did that help you in your entrepreneurial vision?
You know what's so funny, Jeff, is the work that we do in business is so similar to the work that we do in sports, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's also
That's why I asked the question because I knew the answer.
that's right. It's just so similar. It's like, man, it's
Right.
EQ, it's leadership, it's emotional
Yep.
intelligence, it's communication. But I would say this: learning to lose. Anybody can lead when things are going well.
Yeah.
Learning to lead through pain or loss, um, teamwork, connectivity, empathy, communication, all that is part of what I learned growing up in the world of sports, and it's our life's work today. So yeah, it helped tremendously shape us into the leaders that are delivering on this work today.
I mean, if you look at, for those that know my story with our son when he passed away, my other son, Ian, leaned into this chaos and just really embraced golf. And we as a family, I know I did, I just got some solace and some peace to walk around that course for 4 or 5 hours. Even when he missed a 2-foot par putt and I grimaced, there was a sense of wholeness there. Like, I don't know. I just felt really at good on the golf course, and to have no other parents with me, to just be walking, most times my cell phone turned off because most teams wanted that way, was great. And so I think golf for us, and I know in our family, it's 5 chapters in my book. It became really a platform, a foundation to build
Mm.
a stronger life. And, none of us want to just survive. And I think that's one of the things I'm trying to teach, or not, I hate the word teach, but I mean, show people intentionally that we don't want to survive. We want to thrive. We want to keep challenging ourselves, even at 56 and what I've been through. It's like that can either define me negatively or can give me an opportunity to keep learning. And so, and that story resonates in your story as well, because, you could have given up, you could have became an alcoholic, or you could have got angry and blamed everybody around you for what happened to you. But you just kind of said, you know what? Things either happen to me or things happen for me. And Jordan, you were the epitome of, now this door opened up. What am I going to do with it? And I think there's lessons to be learned in all these stories. And I think that's what I've learned on my journey, Jordan, is being vulnerable isn't a narcissistic journey so people can hear about me, but it gives people permission to crack that door of vulnerability
Yeah.
and share their pain, say, I'm an alcoholic too. I'm addicted as well. I considered suicide last week. It's okay to talk about these things. We don't do that as a society. And I will say one thing though, I'm older than you. My generation never talked about this stuff
Mm,
ever. I'm guessing your generation is much better, but Gen Z is the best.
mm,
Gen Z wears their emotions on a sleeve. This is the first time in history that a generation has listed the number one New Year's resolution as mental health, and it's Gen Z.
mm,
And it's basically 10, 11-year-olds all the way up to 26. And that's the future of our country. They're a third of the world's population, almost 3 billion people. So it's like, it's exciting to see the youth today saying, you know what? We are a little messed up. But you know what, you adults, we're
yeah.
open. Show us the way.
Come on.
You know, that's the opportunity for us out there.
And it's such a huge opportunity, and I think it doesn't just speak to the mental health crisis, um, in really tackling, that issue, which is such a big part of what you do, Jeff. And I have so much respect for the work that you're doing through living undeterred. But I think it's a leadership principle. It's like,
Mm,
if you really want to connect with other humans, we say it like this: like, you can impress with your strength, you connect through your struggle. And how
mm,
often do we go
yep.
around telling people about all the things that we've done well or do well, and we show the highlight reel on social media? It's like,
Right.
hey, let me impress you with all this stuff, right?
Right.
But if you really want to connect with other humans, you talk about the hard stuff.
Yeah.
And there's that idea that you just talked about, that vulnerability begets vulnerability. If I'm
Yeah.
vulnerable with you, it allows you to be vulnerable with me, and that's what creates human connection. And in a world that can all too often be fake, artificial, and inauthentic, man, when somebody shows up as real and says, "Hey, this is my stuff. This is who I am. These are the mistakes that I made. This is what I've been through." That's why you're so effective in your leadership journey, is because you're like, I knew even coming to this conversation today, like, hey, Jeff Johnson and I, we're gonna have a real conversation today. We're going
Mm,
to talk about stuff that matters in a real way, with our heart on our sleeve, and people buy that. I think now more than ever today, people want to be a part of movements and initiatives and conversations that are authentic. So I just wanted to give you a shout out, man, for being that type of a leader. And I know that probably didn't happen for you overnight, but you've done such a good job of putting your struggle on display and just being authentic in your work. And man, I commend you for that.
well, thanks. I have, as you, a great team of people in my life that reach out to me. I've had some very tough times, just as recently as last Christmas, not the one we just finished, but the one before.
Mm,
I had my first brush with suicidal ideation, which was terrifying. After all I've been through, you'd think I would have considered that, but it never crossed my mind until just less than a year, and it was terrifying, Jordan. It was absolutely terrifying that Mr. Living Undeterred, podcast author, RV guy, looking like bulletproof dude. I knew it took me 7 seconds to get to my safe and in my life.
mm,
And so I took from that, what did I learn? Why did I get myself in this situation? And there's a relatable story for people. I let my guard down,
mm.
and you can probably in your life, Jordan, find scenarios of your life where you can say, yeah, I got a little overconfident. I thought maybe I could lift too much weight at that point. And that's what happened to me. I got
Yeah.
mentally overconfident. And so I try to tell that story um, in the best way I can to make it relatable. I'm not looking for empathy or sympathy. That ship has sailed years ago. Let me ask you a question. How do we empower kids to be more autonomous today, to self-assess where they're at and to make their own, decisions and be accountable and improve their lives? Because you spend a lot of times with high school and college athletes. I see a lot of your posts and you're always doing these presentations, but how do you get them to pivot to actually, you walk out of the room, you get in your car, you go home, and now they have to start, Jordan's not there to help them. How do we do that?
Mm. I think it starts with identity, right? I mean, and it starts with what you praise and how you encourage and how you advocate for people. Because I think we have a problem. Our culture has a problem where we tend to prioritize and praise the do over the who. And this
Mm,
happens in organizations all across America. I mean, you think about like a Monday morning meeting, right? So
right.
team huddles and they get together
Right.
and they review the week before. And what happens in most organizations is they talk about who did the most, right? Or who did a great job. And so it's going to go
Yep.
around the room. Here's what we did last week as a team, or here's what we're doing right now. And
Right.
Shane, you did a great job, and Joe, you did.
Right.
John, you did an awesome job. And just keep
Everyone else feels terrible.
doing, and yeah, and like so it doesn't help the other people in the room. But what really
Right.
happens is what we're doing is we're feeding identity in the wrong area. We're making identity about results and achievement and accomplishment. And very few times are we pulling people aside and say, you know what, Jeff, I really appreciate this part of who you are.
Right.
You got this gift of authenticity that is so attractive. Like you do a great job of wearing your heart on your sleeve, letting people know where you're at. And I want you to know that that gift of yours, who you are, has allowed you to do what you're doing. And maybe it's
Right.
not the gift of authenticity. It might be the gift of humor or the gift of curiosity, the
Right.
gift of empathy,
Right.
right? But it's like, how do we continue to speak to who people are and prioritize the who over the do? So that's one. I
I
love
love it.
sharing the study. There was a study, Harvard Business Review conducted a study, 4,000 recent college graduates who had all graduated from college and then quit their job within the first 12 months. So they took a job and then they quit. And they're all from
Mm-hmm.
different backgrounds, different walks of life. They gave them 10 reasons. So it's a kind of a multiple choice thing. Why'd you quit? Was it lack of pay, lack of culture, lack of autonomy, lack of upward mobility? Why did you quit? 79% had the same leading answer. The leading answer for 79% of these 4,000 recent college graduates was a lack of appreciation.
Hmm.
They didn't feel seen and they didn't feel noticed. And relationally and socially, our number one need as humans is to feel seen and to feel known. How do
Right.
we make people feel known and seen? Well, it's certainly not talking about how many touchdowns they scored or how
Right.
many sales they made or how many deals they
Right.
closed. It's
Yep.
talking about who they were created to be. It's talking about the gifts and really focusing on who people are. So we say it like this, Jeff, for leaders or for anybody that wants to empower today's youth. Here's the 4 words we need to remember. I notice you matter. I notice who you are, you matter to me. I notice,
Mm-hmm.
what you do, you matter to us. I notice, I see you. I notice and you matter. And I think if
Mm-hmm.
we're on repeat with today's youth, with I notice and you matter, and we're having those conversations often, man, we're going to lead a different type of generation. And it's incumbent upon us as leaders to be that way with the people who are of the next generation. I believe that to be true.
Yeah, I love that, the way you unwrap that, unpackage that. And I think, again, as leaders in our own industries, you and I both, and all the people that we speak with, it's imperative that we can translate this information to the next generation, because these are the next futures, leaders and coaches and parents and those important positions in society. But it's like, for me, then there's the distractions. There's the sidetracks, the exits that people go on, like addiction, and the things that substance abuse, um, labels that people are given, diagnosis from physicians that can somehow hold people back. My son was told he had attention deficit disorder, and that was probably the worst thing you could have said to him. You could have just said you have attention deficit and stopped at that, but we didn't. We added the word disorder. So I'm on this crusade where I'm really trying to just, you know what? I heard someone once say in the mental health space says, if you're afraid of your problems, wait till you see the solutions.
Mm.
And I got to thinking about that. Isn't that so true? We take a kid who's 15 that's looking out the window, that's thinking about something that they probably should not be thinking about because they're in math class. When I was 15, I didn't think about math class in math, the other way around. And we sent them to a doctor because our foot shakes and they talk fast. And okay, you and I both probably do that, Jordan. And we sent him to a doctor. Doctor says, yeah, I think there's an issue here. The kid has attention deficit disorder. And we start down this
Mm.
horrendous path of self-criticism and lack of confidence because somebody told them they had something that they weren't obligated to believe. You're not obligated to believe a diagnosis from anybody unless it's something like, stage 4 cancer or something. But most things are pretty subjective,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And so I don't know where I went off on that. It's an example of my beautiful attention deficit, but the reality is reframing is such a powerful thing. And I think what we do to kids today as a society, especially when it comes with diagnosis and labels, is criminal, absolutely criminal.
Totally agree. Again, it gets back to identity, right? We make that part of their identity.
Right.
Um,
His identity,
yeah,
Jordan, was if he didn't take Adderall, he would eat his friends at midnight.
yeah,
He'd be a werewolf.
yeah.
That was his identity once a doctor told him he had a disorder. And what I missed was the chance as a dad to step in. But you know what? I was like a young Jordan. I was out there trying to make money, trying to travel the world. I was buying things. I was living that life that I missed. So I don't torture myself with regret. But everybody watching this podcast, we can look in hindsight. We can't change the past, but we certainly can change our future, right?
That's right. Amen. Yeah, well said. And it's at the end of the day, man. Like, look at the work you're doing now. I mean, I think you use the word, I think, crusade. Like, you're
Mm-hmm.
on a mission, man. This is big time. I see you traveling the world and really giving your heart to this.
I don't know what the heck I'm doing half the time, man. I
It's
just don't.
beautiful. It's just,
I
you
just,
know.
if I stop, I think I won't exist. I'm terrified of ever. And it's not just like, and you can relate to this. You were in that treadmill where you just couldn't stop because you were chasing something. That something had,
Mm,
money or fame or something. I don't know what I'm chasing. That's my problem. I'm like, I don't know what I'm chasing, and I don't know what I'd do if I ever caught it,
yeah. Well, I think you.
And that in itself it's liberating, it's exciting, but it's also terrifying.
Mm,
I don't have an end game. I don't someone said, "What's your end game?" And I said, "My end game is to have it." The question that most people say is, "What is your end game, Jeff?" And I say, if what we were doing was working, I wouldn't be doing any of this.
mm,
The problem is there is no answer to that question, what's your end game? I have to reframe it as a statement. And my statement is, if what we were doing was working, I wouldn't be doing any of this. And it's true. And you look at your job
yeah.
preparing the next leaders. If the current leadership methods were working, we'd have a society full of leaders, right? Well,
That's right.
we don't.
Yeah.
So we need people like you out there demonstrating, showing, living that lived experience as a leader yourself, that other people can aspire to be leaders as well, especially our children.
But don't you think so much of your fire that burns inside you comes from your own past experience?
Oh yeah.
So, I just think, often your
Yep.
deepest hurt becomes your greatest ministry.
It should be, right?
It should be.
It should
It
be.
should be.
But again, I hate to even bring this up because everybody's different. I got to be careful how I say this, not to sound disparaging, but in the case of, let's say, death, somebody you care about dies.
Yeah.
That can be tremendous inspiration, right? But for many, for the majority, it's a reason to go down those roads of despair. That's why we have the deaths of despair:
Mm,
suicide, alcohol, drug overdose. 850 Americans a day die from the deaths of despair.
mm,
A day.
mm,
And that just, man, if you think about this for a minute, Jordan, 850 a day die
mm,
from diseases of despair. Okay? Preventable. Every one of those.
mm,
These aren't car accidents. These aren't stage 4 cancers. These are preventable deaths. And that's the death statistic.
mm.
You don't have to die to destroy a family.
That's right.
Think of the millions of families out there, Jordan, that their sons and daughters haven't overdosed. Their moms and dads haven't outdrank themselves to death. Their families haven't had suicide, but it's lurking.
Mm,
It's on the front doorstep. It's knocking on the back door. That's my fire, man. It's like, I want to try to prevent any living human to ever have to go through what I went through the last 6 years of my life.
mm.
And yet if they do, they can be coming out of it better, not bitter.
Yeah. Well said. Love
You know, where it comes from, dude, I don't know. And you know what?
it. Yeah.
I just want more of it.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
man. Well,
want more of it.
it's like we talked about, right? I mean, it's easy to lead when things are going well. It's harder to lead when they're not.
Yeah.
And I commend you on stepping into the gap on and by the way, a hard issue to tackle, you know.
Oh yeah. Because I was an alcoholic myself and a gambling addict.
Hmm,
So not only was I trying to help like my wife when Seth died, but it's like I was imploding myself. And you know, I think I saw one of your podcasts that you did with I want to say an MBA coach. Would that be right?
could have been, yeah. Which
I saw a good podcast you did, and they were talking about, you know, when there's turbulence on a plane, you don't take your mask and put it on your kids.
right, but I understand.
That's what you and I would do, you know, our thought. But the reality is, what good are you to your kids if you're dead?
Yeah,
So self-care just kind of now for me, and I know for you, it's important, but I have to work on this hard every day, man, every day. And I tell people that follow me, don't take shortcuts. You know, almost cost me my life last Christmas.
yeah. It's
You
right,
know,
man. Well, here's what I wish. I wish there were more Jeff Johnstons in the world that would take their story, their hurt, and use it for something good. Because people say stuff like, so this gets thrown around, right? You hear this. So people say, adversity builds character.
mm-hmm.
And while I believe that can be true, that sentence by itself, I don't think it is true. I think that's
Mm.
BS. Here's the rest of the sentence. Adversity builds character if you allow it to.
Mm.
Because I've seen a lot of people that hit adversity
Right.
continue to live in adversity. You know?
Yeah, me too.
And so it's not like,
Yep.
it's like there still has to be a choice. There has to be a cognitive choice.
Yeah.
I'm going to use what happened to me or what I went through for good, for my good or for the good
Right.
of others, or both, right? And
Right.
I'm gonna choose to fail forward and to live undeterred and to make it my mission to help other people. And you, again, you've done that. It's you hit adversity and you chose. Jeff Johnston made a choice to move forward, and your deepest hurt became your greatest ministry. And look at all the amazing work that you're doing today. So it's a choice.
Do you think we undervalue the benefit intrinsically of giving? Like, do we not emphasize enough that if you really want to make your life better, give more?
Uh,
And I don't mean financially. I don't mean financially. You know what I mean? It's give. Like, go do something actionable to improve the lives of other human beings, and don't ask for anything in return.
Yeah, I think the word that I would use is serve. Just serve.
Yeah, there
Serve
you
and
go.
give, like because that's what you're doing. You're serving, you're giving, and that's where all the good stuff happens. So here's the thing: like all the leaders that we respect. So if you fill in the blank, Martin Luther King, for some people
Right.
it's Jesus, Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa. What made
Right.
them great as a leader? What made them great as a leader is they came to serve.
Right.
They were service oriented. It wasn't about they
Right.
considered other people ahead of themselves. The personal economics didn't have to make sense. I mean,
And it was
it
authentic.
was
It was authentic.
authentic. I'm
Yeah, because now we can see through that with people, right?
That's right. Pat Lancioni said this to me the other day. He said, people use this term, they say servant leadership. And he says, it always drives me crazy because it insinuates that there's another way to do it. Like
Hmm.
leadership is service.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you believe in Jesus or you don't believe in Jesus, or most people believe that Jesus existed, whether they believe he's a savior, they'd say, oh, I still believe he was a good leader of people, right?
Sure.
And the scripture is clear that he came to serve. And most people would say, well, he's one of the most impactful, if not the most impactful leader to ever walk the planet. And
Mm-hmm.
so again, a great model for leadership. And back to your question, don't you think it's more impactful, and it does something inward inside of us when we
Right.
give it? The answer is yes, because all leadership, all impact is rooted in service.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that to be true?
I do, Jordan, and it got to thinking. So I was thinking about sports when you were talking, and I went back to a day in high school when I was having a really bad shooting day, and my coach said, "Jeff, when you go back out, just focus on defense. Don't even worry about a shot." So I went out there and I locked down my guy and I did all this stuff. And I got back and realized that in between of just really focusing on my defense, I made 3 baskets.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even trying. And so I guess where I'm going with that is sometimes when we're trying to be leaders, what's right in front of us sometimes, can be an illusion. And the opposite can happen as well. Sometimes we can focus on something completely different and do good somewhere else. And that's where I think doing service, doing good, sometimes you don't realize the impact it's having on other people. The collateral upside versus the collateral damage, of
So good.
the negative things. So yeah, I'm addicted to service. I get a lot out of it. I'm attracted to people that are addicted to service, like you and all the other people that I've been so blessed to follow on LinkedIn and
Mm.
Facebook. And once you get a community of like-minded people, man, that's my biggest well to go to when I'm down,
Yeah.
is that we call it, in my day, I called it a Rolodex. I don't know. Do you know what a
Yeah, man.
Rolodex is?
Of course. Yeah.
um, but I used to go through, now it's just like I go to my connections on social, my people I met.
Mm.
And if I ever get to a point where I'm considering something horrendous, I've got 100 people. And I know you're the same way, man. It's like someone once said, when you get older, your circle of friends gets like a funnel, it gets narrow, narrow, narrow. It's like mine's an inverse funnel. I'm 56 and I have more close humans in my life, intimate human relationships than I've ever had,
Mm.
ever had. And I'm widowed at 56. You'd think I'd just be sitting here in my basement feeling sorry for myself. It's like, no, I get to talk to people like Jordan Montgomery that shoots me full of adrenaline today. It's like,
Yeah. Well,
you have to get a lot of what you do too. I mean, you have to get, when you walk off the stage and there's 500 CEOs cheering, or you got a bunch of college athletes that are used to coach speak, and they see someone with a lived experience come up, that's got to be super rewarding for you, Jordan.
well, it is rewarding. I mean, I think, but at the end of the day, here I learned this lesson several years ago. Somebody said to me, "You ought to pay attention to the fact that people aren't praising you." You just mentioned this, like walking off the stage. They're not praising you; they're praising the gift inside of you, and
Hmm.
that really hit me hard because here's the scary part. We can actually start to be prideful about our service. And we could be prideful about our work in general. And that was me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was so prideful, but hey, look at me,
Yeah.
and so I just learned that hey, like they're not impressed by you. They don't even know you. Like who are you to think anybody's impressed by you? They
They don't care about you.
don't care about you. What they're cheering
Right.
for, what they're connecting with, is the gift that's inside of you.
Right.
Now you've used your gift to serve, and it would be easy for somebody to go, "Wow, Jeff Johnston! Look at all this, look at who he is, this great person that." And so there's so many people that are impressed by you, and then you have a choice, right? It's okay. I can let that go to my spirit, my being, and my ego. It's, oh, hey, look at all the good I'm doing, and people love me and they're following me. Or it's like, no, you know what? I've been given a gift. It was given to me. It can be taken away. And I'm just going to use this gift and your gift is charisma and charm and connectivity. And I mean, that's what allowed you to be so successful in business, right? That's Jeff Johnston's gift. And so that gift can go to your ego and your spirit and your being, or it could be, and I'm going to use this to serve, and I'm going to bless a
Yeah.
bunch of people. And I want to say this on the podcast because here's how you know somebody's really interested in service. And I'm thinking about your situation. I would have to guess, and I don't know, right? We've never had a conversation about your finances.
Yeah.
But I would have to guess that there's a lot about your situation right now that is totally backwards. And the personal economics do not make sense.
I would fully agree.
Would you
Yep.
agree? And so
Yeah.
when you can look at a person's situation and say, hey, I can tell from the way they're living that they don't always need the personal economics to make sense. In fact, go back to Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, Jesus Christ, just keep going. What did all of those leaders have in common? The personal economics did not make sense, and they didn't need them to make sense. Now, sometimes you win and they make sense and that's fine.
Yeah.
We're not,
Yep.
not being critical of that. That's,
Right. Right.
is real. But at the end of the day, what I respect so much about your journey is you're putting it all on the line. Somebody's looking at you going, what in the hell is that guy doing? Like, shouldn't he be playing golf or on a beach or like enjoying?
The person in the mirror says that to me every day.
But it's amazing and that's why it's so special, man. Is you're on the road,
Yeah,
it up,
I don't know.
and
I
it's amazing.
yeah. It's been let me you know what died inside of me along with my son and my wife?
Hmm,
My ego.
hmm.
I don't know where it is. I don't identify with it. Um, I am such a completely different human being, and I think I am normal. I'm a 56-year-old, white heterosexual dad from Iowa. It's like, how much more normal can I be? And I don't think I'm doing anything that you wouldn't do. God forbid you have to go through any of this stuff, or anyone else watching this show. I don't think there's anything special. I just think there are certain things I do daily put me in a real good position that heightens my sense of emotional confidence for sure. But I don't think I have a secret to anything. I think if people got tested, Jordan, and I know for a fact you agree with this, we can do more than what we think we can do.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
question. Yep.
So I meet moms that say, "Well, I don't know what I'd do if I lost my son." And I think, well, I don't say it, but I think it. I think you'd be amazing. I think you would be
Wow.
freaking unstoppable. But I don't say that because their son hasn't died yet, so I don't want to say that. That sounds terrible. So I think in my mind, I
Wow.
think you would be so much. It would elevate you to some place you've never experienced.
Wow.
So I hope it never happens, but I'm confident that if it ever did, you would be amazing.
Wow.
That's in my mind when I look at people. Um,
Oof.
Maybe someday I'll say it to somebody, but I don't want to jinx them. It's like, yeah, I just don't want to. I don't want to jinx him and feel like, oh, don't talk about my son. That way, it's like,
Wow.
But
Jeff, that's one of the most powerful things I've ever heard. Like on our podcast, being a guest on another podcast, like because you're right. I think as a parent, and I'll say this to you, having lived that experience
mhm,
with four young children, um, that is one of my greatest fears.
every parent,
And I think for every parent, right? It's like, and
yeah,
again, you've lived that.
yeah,
And yet to hear someone say, like, there is so much hope in what you just said, that hey, if you ever did have to go through it, you'd be amazing. And you can say that because you went through it
right.
and you are amazing and you're doing amazing things. And you're
Well,
living proof that life can be good on
yeah,
the other side of tragedy, you know?
and the other thing I learned, Jordan, and maybe you think this way too. I think you and I have a lot of similarities. What's in our head is when I went around the country, I really went out exploring, like trying to get an idea of what was out there.
Mm,
And when I came back, when I pulled in my driveway, what I really learned was that now when I look at people, you included, I see a story. I see a story. I don't see a successful businessman. I don't. I don't even see a white successful businessman. I don't even see a man. I see a story. And I want to get that story out of you. I want to hear the story. I want to hear about your struggles at Northwestern Mutual you had. Sorry, I wasn't supposed to name the company, but
you're good. My nose? Yeah.
um, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure people could
Yeah,
find out if they
absolutely.
wanted. But no, I want to hear the story about your family. About marrying in and having two children come to the table. I did as well. Prudence had a child when Seth was my stepson.
Mm,
So I can relate to that. But I think that's like my real calling today isn't what people think it is, and that's to promote this image of being undeterred. It's I want to hear your story. I want to see,
mm,
Jordan, what are you doing each day to impact the next generation, give them hope? And what are you saying to,
mm,
the older people, the older generations that are we can't forget about, like my dad who's 90, who almost died this summer. It's like we can't forget about our older generation. There are a lot of them are alone.
mm.
What do we do to empower them to still think about a life when they're 90, when realistically their life may be in months or years. So, I applaud what you do, man. I need to dive more into what you do. I'll have to confess, I know, I think pretty much what you do, but I need to watch one of your full presentations, or at least if you want to invite me to one, I would go in the front row, dude, and be your biggest fan. I'd love to hear you speak. I really would.
Well,
I hear nothing but good things
love
about
to have
your
you
speeches.
anytime, anytime. And at some point we need to share a stage together, or do some sort of collaboration, because you got a fire inside of you, man. And just talking to you it's interesting because we share a mutual friend, Kenyon Murray, who's
Oh yeah.
one of
Yep.
both of our closest friends. And one of the things that Kenyon would say about you is, Jeff always keeps it real. And I know that you've been just a really loyal friend to Kenyon, but he would also say, and he didn't say it like this, but like when I met you and he connected us, it's like, just a heads up, man, this guy's got a fire. Like he's really passionate. And then I remember actually, I don't know if you remember this, one of our first conversations, it might have been the first conversation. I was on a phone with you. You were sharing the story about Seth, and you had me in tears. Like I was literally with another grown man who I'd never met in person, just crying
I do remember that
on the
call.
phone. You remember that? And
Yep, I do.
it just touched me so much. And you were, man, real and passionate. And so the point is, at some point, you and I will do that together. And I look forward to that day.
Yeah, I'd love to have you call into my radio show.
Yeah.
I host the Living Undeterred Mental Health Hour. I bought an hour of airtime, and last night we did Addiction in America, which was a great show. But I'd like to have you call in, and you and I could come up with a theme. I normally try to get 2 or 3 callers to call in. It's on WMT Radio with Doug Wagner. You know Doug. And I like to focus on the mental health angle. So you and I just got to put our heads together and come up with a
Let's do
way
it.
that you can have a show kind of dedicated to what you do, and talk from the mental health perspective, which really is everything.
Yeah.
Mental health is
I'd
everything.
be honored. I'd love to do that with you. Yeah. I'd be real honored.
So if people want to learn more about what you do, maybe they're not a client of yours, or they're not in an environment where they're going to be in the audience for a company meeting or something, how do people reach you? What's the best way to follow you on all the social media platforms? I want to hear about your podcast. Maybe before you answer all that, maybe tell our listeners a little bit about your podcast. What are you trying to accomplish with your podcast? What type of people you're getting on your show?
Yeah, the podcast is a Montgomery Companies podcast. And so we're about to go through a rebrand. It'll be called Growth Over Goals moving forward. So you can find it everywhere podcasts are available. Like you, we're trying to pull out a story. We're trying to equip leaders. The tagline of the podcast is, we're helping leaders go faster, farther. So we want to accelerate the growth curve, and then just feature people from different walks of life. We've had, former NBA, NFL athletes. We've had Super Bowl champions, Olympic medalists, but we've also had just some really average, ordinary people who are uniquely special in their own way. And so it's kind of a collection of stories and people from different walks of life. But I love this work. I love the one-to-one conversations where you get to.
Well, I can tell you do, man. And it exudes with every time you have a conversation. I can see it in your face.
Yeah, I really do. And I think it's because when you're on a podcast, you get to talk about things that matter. Like, I don't know about you, Jeff. I'm just involved in so many conversations that just really do not matter. They just don't. You end up talking about time of day stuff, and that's fine. And there's a place and time for, laughter and all that. But I like being able to get on with Jeff Johnston and dig in on things that really matter. And so yeah, man. So that's our podcast, and we just say, for anybody listening to this message, reach out, send us an email. I'm at jordan@montgomerycompanies.com. Pretty active on social media. Send me a message on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. Let's connect. If I can be helpful, I just say that with my friend hat on. We don't need another client. I mean, we're blessed to do a lot of work with clients, and but I just want to be as helpful as I can be to anybody listening. So appreciate that. Appreciate you having me on, man, and spending some of your valuable time with me.
Do you have a book?
We're working on it. Yeah, we're in the middle. Just got the outline finished, and so hopefully this next fall it'll be finalized, and we're ready to roll it out. Looking forward to it.
Let me guess, it's going to be on leadership?
It's going to be on leadership.
What a shock.
It's going to be on the art of encouragement. So the full book will be about empowering and encouraging today's youth, actually. So we'll have to, yeah, we'll have more to talk about when the book comes out.
Who are the top leaders in your life?
One is my dad.
Yeah.
Just has always been my strongest advocate, cheerleader, still today my best friend. My older brother, who's also my business partner, we share so much in common. This is gonna sound weird. My wife is just, I mean, she is my best friend, and in so many ways has led me, taught me, um, and as a person of faith, I mean, that's important to me too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, those are a few. And then, like John Maxwell's been somebody who's really poured into me from afar. I always talk about the mentors, the faraway mentor. I got to meet
Yeah.
last year, which is great. But yeah, the Ed Miletts and the Craig Rochelle's and the Jim Rohns. And I mean, there's that long list of faraway mentors too. So we're the byproduct of those who have come before us,
Yeah. Well, listen, um, I, I really appreciate taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know I'm busy. I only can imagine how busy you are. You always seem to have something going on. And again, I just put you up there on that, my Mount Rushmore of humans has like 200. It's not four, it's 200. So I put you up there because, you know, you're doing something at a pretty young age. I mean, a lot of the people I run in kind of the mental health space seem to be maybe 10 years older than you, but you're doing things that I wish I would have realized were important to me at that age.
Mm.
You know, and the benefit of hindsight, I can look back and I could say, wow, I wish I was doing that at Jordan's age. But I really admire that fact you have embraced the leadership angle and kind of come up with your own curriculum, I guess, for lack of a better word, your own way to kind of show people how to live an intentional life, the right way to do things. We need more of that today, man. There's just, if you look at going back to the kids again about just all the despair, all the anxiety, all the depression, it's the worst it's ever been. And we just need leaders at all levels, coaches and teachers and neighbors, everybody to really start emulating and leading that intentional life and, show our kids how to do it right. Not tell them.
Amen.
Show them. Right.
Well said, brother. Well said. And hey, you are one of those people. So keep leading from the front. Appreciate who you are and all that you do.
Well, listen, man, I know we'll work together. I'll get you on the radio show. I want to talk to you about some other ventures I'm working on that I'm sure we can collaborate. But keep doing what you're doing. And I don't need to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you this. Keep living undeterred.
Love you, brother. Thanks for having me.
All right, man. We'll talk.